Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Victor, and I'm going to be your anchor on this training. So this is the business analysis series on the channel. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you have questions with respect to what we are considering on this series, you can use the comment section and ask your questions. If you're taking this training as physical students, physical training students, or our remote or hybrid students are learning business analysis, you could ask your questions in the comment section. Okay, so this is chapter 7. We've gone very, very far. So this is requirement analysis and design definition. Requirement analysis and design definition. So we want to try to understand, how do we analyze the requirement that we've gathered over time during elicitation and the ones we considered when we're looking at life cycle requirements. Now, we also want to see how to define our designs, because we said the process is typically you plan, right? While doing your planning, you have to do requirements gathering. Then, of course, you design, you prototype. Then before you start developing, and of course, you start doing testing for whatever solution that you want to deliver. Then let's understand what is requirement analysis. Requirement analysis and design definition knowledge area describes the tasks that business analysts perform to structure and organize requirements discovered during elicitation activities. They also need to specify and model requirements and design, validate and verify information, identify solutions, options that meet business needs, and estimate the potential value that could be realized for each solution option. Now, it's a very, very detailed work. So we're going to be looking at how do we do this? How do we look at all the requirements that we've gathered during the elicitation stage? Right? So elicitation is where we're going to be looking at all of the different stakeholders. They say what they will need for the project. We look at our high-level strategic goals. Then we look at those requirements. They will not try to validate and verify them, because people have to sign off on what is the final thing we're going to be building. They will not start looking at the solution that we're going to render from those requirements and make sure that it aligns to our business needs. Then start asking ourselves, what value, what ROI are we going to be getting from this solution? Because we also need to look at the different solutions that we might have and which option is going to be better for us. So what are the different tasks we have here? So let's go back to this guide. So here we just what we talked about before. So we want to look at all of the different solutions that is going to be proposed. Now, we need to specify and model the requirements, right? We need to specify and model the requirements. After we've modeled and specified the requirements, we also need to now verify those requirements. After we've verified those requirements, one thing we need to now do is to validate the requirements, because we can't just create the requirements and pass it on and start developing solutions based on those requirements, right? We cannot do that. So we also need stakeholders to validate them. Then we need to define our requirements architecture. Then we look at the solutions. Then we do some analysis and on the potential value we're going to get and recommendation. Quite a lengthy module, quite a lengthy knowledge area. So we're going to be trashing them one after the other. So let's look at specifying the model requirements. So what's the purpose? The purpose is to analyze, synthesize, and refine elicitation results into requirements and design. During elicitation, this stakeholder is saying this person is saying this, another team member is saying this, going to be possible requirements. And even sometimes we're trying to do requirements gathering, we're trying to elicitate. We do research. We do market research. We look at what is obtainable. We looked at several benchmarks. Just like when you want to develop a mobile app for, let's say, an eatery. One of the things you want to do is to try to look at other eateries around the world, see how their mobile apps are, and go to Play Store, go to Apple Store, look at those requirements, get insights, interview persons, look at previous projects you've had, try to bring all of these things together. But here, we need to begin to refine them. We need to try to now put them into something final so that we can turn them into designs. Because there's a huge gap between requirements and designs, but it's very, very key. In specify and model requirements, what we want to do is that we want to analyze the elicitation results and create representation of those results. So this is where we're going to be using draw.io. This is where we can be using business Visio. This is where we can be using any UML or business process modeling annotation tool to be able to do some kind of flows, do some kind of sketches on how these requirements can now move into, how can we now represent it in a way that all stakeholders can understand. So description, so we just deploy the elicitation results at any level. Then some of the elements for specifying model requirements is that we need to do model requirements, we need to analyze it, then we need to represent requirements and each attributes of the requirements. I love this because in project management, we call this scope, and this is where work breakdown structure comes in. For most of us that are into project management, so we need to now represent them, break them down into small piecemeal, then implement appropriate level of abstraction. So if there's any relationship between each of them, we'll try to define them. So what are some of the guidelines and tools? So you need modeling notation standard. So that is where let's say for mobile app development. So let's just see an example. So let's say we're doing this. Let's say we are doing this. Let me open this one and let me open one more. So you're going to learn how to do this stuff. So we're going to pick a project and we're going to ask ourselves, how do we represent it? Right? How do we represent it from here to here, from here to here, from here to here? So they are standard. So you're going to learn how to use, we're going to be using, for this case study, we're going to be using draw.io to do all of this representation. Either you're doing a mobile app or you're doing a website, because you need to tell the faces from point A to point B to point C to point D till the person exhausts that particular service and gets value. Then we need some modeling tools. We need requirement architecture. We need requirement lifecycle management tool. And you could use Excel, you could use any tool that is convenient for you to be able to just manage that. We have 10 requirements. Over time, they grow to 15 requirements. Over time, they grow to 5 requirements. Then we'll now finally have a 3 requirements, a final requirement. That life cycle management, you might use any tool to be able to tell that. Even as it's as simple as Notepad is. Then, of course, a solution scope. So these are the techniques you're going to be using. Acceptance and evaluation criteria. Let's look at acceptance and evaluation criteria. Acceptance and evaluation criteria. Okay, let me see if it's in our tools. Acceptance and evaluation criteria. Okay, this is it here. What condition must be met for solution to be accepted by key stakeholders? And most of the times, what we are looking at here is the KPIs that have already been defined by key stakeholders. So we need to look at the value attributes. Then we need to look at acceptance applies to one solution. Evaluation ranks alternative solutions. So here we want to be looking at different solutions and know which one to pick. Then, of course, we'll now do an assessment. Very, very key. Then, of course, business capability analysis, business model canvas. I've talked about business model canvas a few times. Let's see if we can see some detailed description of business model canvas. How an enterprise creates, delivers, captures customer value. And the components of business model canvas is key partnerships, activities, resources, value proposition, customer relationship, channel, segment, cost structure, revenue streams. So it's a very, very important business model canvas. It's a very, very important template that even for starters, for small businesses, large businesses, very, very key. If you want to grab and render a solution to, this is kind of small. Is this small? Let me see this. Okay, this is sizable. So if you want to render a solution as a business analyst to any company, let me see if we can get this. If you want to render a solution to any company, one of the things, or you want to effect change, one of the things you want to ask yourself is that, who are the key partners? Take, for instance, somebody that sells a business that is into consulting. They consult for, let's say they provide advisory services to teenagers, maybe career. Now, they're going to have some set of partners. It can be educational board, it can be government agency, it can be exam bodies, it can be several. So those are the key partners. Key activities, the question is, what are you going to be doing every day if you hire staff? So what is going to be driving your systems? Who is going to be driving your systems? And what are they going to be doing? So that's where key activities comes in. If you wake up in the morning, at night, what kind of events, what kind of roles, which kind of daily actions will people be taking? Key resources. So what do you need in terms of resources? So in management, we talk about the 7 M's, the 5 M's in management. So we talk about material, we talk about money, we talk about machines, we talk about manpower. All of those different M's constitute our resources. And of course, what is your value proposition? What value do you want to deliver? And of course, how do you want to communicate with your customer? What kind of relationship do you want to have? Who are your customer segment? For this instance, we said young teenagers, persons transiting into career. So you can as well define your customer segment. It can mean to be teenagers preceding maybe university. It can be persons that are a little bit aged but are trying to change career. So you need to define who your customers are. Like, for instance, in our organization, we have persons that we want to speak to for some different kind of services. And with time, we're trying to expand to different segments. So it's very key that for every business that want to deliver change, they need to do what? They need to define their customer segment. And of course, cost structure. How do you want to do? Do you want to go the quantity way, or do you want to go the quality way? Do you want to charge a premium, expensive cost structure, and serve a little, like a small quantity of persons? Or do you want to go the maximum quantity and cost down your cost? So you have different, just like you have Toyota, you have Lamborghini. So people are going to decide. That's why you don't see those, you don't see Lamborghini advert on, let's say, CNN, or you rarely see them on TV. If you see them, it's going to be once in a year or once in 2 years. So their cost structure is going to tell who their market segments are. And of course, you're going to also ask yourself, what are your revenue streams? So this is what we talk about, streams of income. How are you going to be earning money? Are you going to be earning money from partnership? Are you going to be earning money? Are you going to be earning money from different kind of sources? So business model canvas is a very, very important tool that a business analyst can use to like look at requirements, look at solutions that he or she is going to render. Then, of course, you have concept modeling, you have data dictionary, you have data flow diagrams. Data flow diagrams, very important. I think when we start using Figma or some other tools to do our interfaces, you're going to learn interface analysis. In interface analysis, you're trying to check the different screens and typically analyze them and see the kind of problems they solve. Interface analysis. A second. Interface analysis. So an interface is a connection between two components or across solution boundaries. This identifies details regarding information exchange between two solutions, components, or across solution boundaries. Keep it simple. If you have a mobile app, mobile app interfaces, so you have collect star and earn rewards, pay in store, order ahead, customize your order. These are different screens. These are different interfaces. Now, each have a sub solution to the end goal, right? This has to do with rewards. This has to do with payment. This has to do with making orders. This has to do with customizing your order. So they are all linked together. So that's why we say, just a second. Okay, interface analysis. So two components or across solution boundaries. So detailing regarding information exchange between solution components or across solution boundaries. So very, very key. They will have non-functional requirement analysis. Later on, we're going to be learning the difference between functional requirements. I think we've considered that functional requirements and non-functional requirements. So functional requirements have to do with those items that are very key, right? Most of the times, if those requirements are not there, that solution might not typical to what you can synonymous to must have, right? They are very key. Functional requirements, very, very key. Right? So functional, describe functional behaviors and data capabilities that a solution must have. So that's why we call them must have. They're not functional like quality of service requirements for overall solution. And those ones we can call them should have, could have. So those requirements, it's just like if you have a table, if you're trying to design a table, now a table must have minimum 3 legs. You cannot have a table with, rarely will you have a table with 2 legs. So, but 3 legs, very, very functional because you must have them. So when you are delivering your solutions and looking at your requirement, there are some that are very, very key. You call them, and that's why business analysts will normally deal with a document called functional requirements document. So when you see a document and it's called functional requirement document, we're talking about those things that are must have for a project. Those things are things that we cannot do without. Those things are like our KPIs. Okay, so who are going to be the persons that are going to help us specify and model our requirements? Any stakeholder can do that. Outputs, any combination of requirements and designs or designs in the form of text, matrix, and diagrams, right? Then we need to now verify our requirements. You see, at every stage, for whatever you're going to be doing, there must be some sort of verification. Very, very key. So the purpose of verify requirements is to ensure that requirements and design specifications and models meet quality standard. Quality standard. So requirements specified and model, that's going to be your input to that. And some of the elements are characteristics of requirement and design quality, verification activities, and checklists. 7.2, let's look that up. Right? So there's a little note on characteristics of requirements and design quality, and of course, verification activities. 7.2. And don't forget, in 7.1 requirement types, There are different types of requirements. Some of them are business, some of them are stakeholders, some of them are solution-based, some of them are functional, some of them are non-functional, some of them are transition. We've looked at transitional requirements before. So there are some requirements that are just needed for some certain stage of the solution. There are some requirements that you will need for a solution. Take, for instance, if you need to set up or if you need to scale up a fuel station. Now, that fuel station is going to have several requirements. And if in the future you hope that that fuel station will also be a gas station and we have a shopping mall. So you see that there are some requirements that you are not going to need at the very moment. But there are still some requirements that you're going to need to transit to the next stage of your solution. So you call those kind of requirements transition requirements. So that is a type of requirement. So let's look at 7.2. 7.1, characteristics of requirements. So we have feasible, atomic, complete, consistent, unambiguous, prioritized, concise, understandable, testable. So there's requirements needs to meet some of these characteristics. Then of course, verification. So it has to be complete. At times you need to do some comparison, comparative analysis. You want to check compliance with standards. You want to see if there's anything missing. You want to have very clear terminologies, right? You don't want to have something that is very, very unclear, very ambiguous. Then you have requirement viewpoints. Have I gotten up to 4.7? Okay, no, I'm not gotten up to that. So let me get back. We're just in 7.2. So let's look at the tools. So some tools have functionality to check for issues related to many of these characteristics, such as atomic, unambiguous, and prioritize. And some techniques you can use to get this is your item tracking, your evaluation criteria, your KPIs, and your reviews. All stakeholders can contribute to that. At the end of the day, you're going to have verified requirements. So let's go ahead and look at validate requirements. Now, we need to validate. We need to be very, very sure that whatever requirements that we are getting, they are all aligned, right? They are all, they go in line with what our business goals are, what our business needs are. So we need to actually validate them. So to ensure that stakeholders' solution, transition requirements align to the business requirement and the design satisfies the requirements. What are some of the inputs? So you need your requirements that are specified and modeled. What are some of the elements? You need to identify some assumptions, define measurable evaluation criteria, evaluate alignment with solution scope. What are some of the guidelines and tools to validate requirements? Now, you need to look at your business objectives. Make sure that whatever requirement, if I'm doing a mobile app now, those requirements that are validated now, I want to make sure that they align with my business objectives. And there are some times that you have requirements and they don't conform to the overall standard, overall objective of the business. You are doing a shopping app, you are doing a logistics app, and the requirements that you have there, they don't align to the end goal that the stakeholders are going to need or the stakeholders are going to want. So you have an issue there. Then we'll talk about future state description. So you want to make sure that the requirements that are part of the solution scope do help achieve the desired future state, because you already have your future state description. You've defined it before now. You already have where you are going to. If it's a mobile app, that's to make sure that people can pay for a particular service and we connect it via an API and collect those details and be able to tell our profit in real time, it then means that whatever requirements that we are putting up now must meet that particular target. If you don't do this properly, what is going to happen is that you would always want to change and update the application. So that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing regular updates, but at every stage, your requirements should be validated so that whatever future state you want to get to, you can always be able to achieve that. Then, of course, and the rest. So what are some of the techniques that you can use to actually validate your requirements? You look at your KPIs, match them and see if they adhere. You do some financial analysis. You ask yourself, these requirements I have, would they be able to deliver us so and so value? And of course, you want to be analyzing quite a lot of those documents to be able to make a final decision. So these and more are the different kind of techniques you can use to validate requirements. And of course, all stakeholders can come into place to help you validate requirements. And at the end of the day, you have requirements that are validated. Now, you can have requirements and they are not validated. So, but here we're talking about requirements that are validated, requirements that are validated. So let's look at requirements architecture. So this is to ensure that the requirements collectively support one another to fully achieve the objectives. So this is where we talk about dependencies. Take, for instance, if you want to do, if you want a company to be able to scale and grow, and one way you want to do that is to ensure that they can accept payments online. Now, there are other requirements that are related to this particular requirement. One is that, do they have digital bank accounts? Do they have conventional bank accounts? Do they have a website that people can visit? Do they have social media platforms where people can go to and not connect to their website and not be able to make payments? So here you're looking at how just like I was discussing with somebody that was trying to do something on email marketing. Email marketing is a way you can automate your marketing so that you can send one mail and it can get to quite a number of persons. You can also automate the emails in such a way that you can schedule the mails that will reach all of those persons 3, 4, 5, 6 months, 1 year ahead. So anybody that signs up into a newsletter, you can automate all the mails that the person is going to get for the next 6 months, and you can edit. Now, I told the person that you cannot do email marketing without learning how to set up some basic websites. You cannot do digital marketing without understanding online platforms. So to cause a certain change or to get some certain knowledge, some of these requirements are very, very interconnected. So I want to see how each other can support them. Take, for instance, I told the person also that if you go place a Facebook ad or a Twitter ad, there are other requirements that are connected to this change, this progress, this growth you want to cause, you want to implement. If you place a Twitter, a Facebook, a LinkedIn ad, and it ends on that same platform, you are destined for failure. But if you understand that this solution that you want to render, which is maybe business growth, which is maybe profit, which is ROI, which is maybe business spread or brand awareness, this requirement, one of which is placing an ad, have other items that needs to support this ad for you to get results. So you need to go create a landing page. So a landing page is a website page where you direct people to. Then you need to collect people's emails. Then you need to now do email marketing. Maybe you now need to do bulk SMS marketing. So they are all connected. So here we're going to be looking at architecture. So let's define requirement architecture. So this is a requirement architecture fits the individual model and specifications together to ensure that all the requirements form a single whole that support the overall business objectives and produce a useful outcome for stakeholders. Like I said, so you cannot say, okay, I want to cause I want to implement a 500% ROI for the business. And one way for me to do that is to do Facebook marketing or to do online marketing. So there are quite a lot of strategy that most of the times when we do digital marketing, we are going to deploy a digital marketing strategy document. That strategy document is going to tell all of the key activities that are going to happen, all the different requirements that need to happen, all of the different KPIs, and how each is connected to each other, and in what part, in what sequence they are going to happen to not cause that final KPIs to be met. Take, for instance, you say 5,000 Facebook likes, you say 1,000 shares. Those KPIs, there are several requirements that need to interact, right, for you to have a meaningful goal. Now, some of the inputs are going to be information management approach, your requirement, and your solution scope. You need to define your scope. What do you want to achieve? Some of the elements are viewpoints and views, template architectures, completeness, relate and verify requirement relationship, business analysis, information architecture. That's 7.4. So in 7.4, we have a note here on 7.41. We also have a note on relate and verify quality of relationship, requirement relationship. Let's look at 7.44. 7.41, 7.444. How modeled data versus processes, what is represented to specific stakeholders, right? Relationship is actual, necessary, correct, unambiguous, and consistent. Each of those requirements have to have one form of relationship or the other. And some of the tools you can use to do this is an architecture management software or any relationship management tool. Like I said, Visio can do this, Draw.io, or any process modeling diagram can do this. Even Microsoft Word document can do that. If you can use your lines, your text box, all of those things, you can use that to draw out the relationship between all of those requirements. Then, of course, legal regulatory information. So you cannot take some actions. We've had to implement some solutions, especially softwares for organizations. And one of the first things we're asking them is that, do you have license for whatever you want to do? So you can have the best type of solution, payment licenses, the type of business license. If you don't have most of those things, then whatever kind of, and of course your methodology and framework, how are you going to actually deploy that? So if you don't have some of these licenses, what will happen is that you will do the tech side, and when it's time for you to implement, you see that you can't even move away from your office. You cannot get to the field. You cannot go to market. So the techniques we're going to use to define requirement architecture is data modeling, right? For database administrators, for programmers, this is going to make a lot of sense to you. If you also use Excel very well, so this is what we call a data model. So a data model just tells how different aspects of data are related to each other. Data model. Let me use maybe a simple example and explain to you. Let me use this to explain to you. Now, look at this table. If you look at this table, so let's say this is a customer table. This is order. This is their order line. This is the product. This is delivery. This is payment. Now, let's say this is a delivery store. Now, you're going to see that each of these tables have some form of relationship. So this is what we call the data model, right? So you see the customer ID, first name, last name, address, phone number, email, customer ID. Are you seeing? So this is the primary key, primary key, primary key, primary key, primary key, primary key. So you have customer ID, you have customer ID here. So this is linked to this. order ID. This is order ID. So this is linked to this. This is also linked to this because you also have order ID. So database administrators will be able to pull information from this, from this, from this. Let's say you have this is an Excel sheet and you have this is a table, this is a table. Sorry, this is a sheet, 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 this is a sheet. Now they are all connected. Since they are connected, you can draw a conclusion from all of the different sheets. If they're not connected, if they don't have relationship, then it will be difficult for you. With the way the relationship are now, we can actually tell which we can sort our orders by type because our table are linked together. We can also check the arrival time of all our different orders. But you see, we don't have arrival here, but this table is linked to this and this linked to this. But because they have a relationship, they are modeled, then it's possible that we can actually see how, because they are related, they will actually draw some conclusions from them. Then, of course, functional decomposition, this is a technique. So in functional decomposition, whatever function that we have, we want to break it down into small piecemeal. In project management, we call it work breakdown structure. So if the functional requirement of a particular project is that we need to build a website, that's a functional requirement. Functional decomposition is going to mean that we need to buy the website's name and the hosting, we need to do the designs, we need to do the backend, we need to host it. That's a classical example of functional decomposition, breaking the functions, the features into small piecemeal. And of course, you have interviews, you have organizational modeling, you have scope modeling, you have workshops. These are the ways you can come up with your requirement architecture. And of course, your stakeholders are going to be subject matter expert, implementation subject matter expert, your project manager, sponsor, testers. All of these guys will help you create a very nice relationship between all your requirements. At the end of the day, you're going to get your requirement architecture. Okay, so the next thing we want to look at is defining our design options. So this is where we start doing some graphics, we start doing some kind of imagery representation of all the requirements that we have. So when designing a solution, there may be one or more design options identified. So each design option represents a way to satisfy a set of requirements. And most of the times we say we can mock up, we can have design 1, design 2, design 3, so that people can choose. It's just like a simple example is when you want to do a logo for a brand. So they tell you, how many options are you going to give to me? So you can have option 1, option 2, option 3. So the person now picks one. So that is synonymous to having design options. So define solution approach, identify improvement opportunities, requirements allocation, describe design options. So let's look at 7.5 in great detail. 7.5 in detail. So we have define solution approach, whether we want to create it, whether we want to buy it, or whether we want to explore, whether we want to explore hybrid. Then how do we improve? Then how do we allocate requirements? Then what are the different options that we have? Okay, so some of the guidelines and tools are looking at existing solutions, looking at our feature state solution, then of course requirements, then solution scope. Some of the techniques here are benchmarking, brainstorming, document analysis, interviews. These are very known techniques that we've considered over time. Survey and questionnaire is a very, very nice way to also look at the different options. Because if you pass a survey, if you pass a questionnaire, people can tell you, okay, I like this because of this, give reasons. Then you cannot analyze what you have. At the end of the day, you cannot make a what's it called? you can now make a conclusion. And of course, your stakeholders who can help you look at your different options and come up with a final decision. And your output is at the end of the day, you're going to get some options. Now, in 7.6, we're going to be looking at how do you analyze potential value and also go ahead and recommend some solutions. That is 7.6. Analyze potential value and recommend solution. Because whatever design that we have to look at some cost-benefit analysis. We have to look at the cost that is going to take us. Take, for instance, you are proposing a solution, design option A is going to cost this, design option B is going to cost this, design option C is going to cost this. This is now for you to analyze the value you are going to derive and also now decide which solution that you're going to pick. Here, you want to look at the most appropriate solution that meets enterprise requirements, right? You want to look at what meets your overall requirements. Okay, so let's look at analyze potential value and recommend solution. So here, what we're trying to do is to look at the value we're going to get from each of those solutions or each of those requirements and see what ROI we're going to get, what value we're going to get, and decide which one will be very, very important, which one is going to be very, very, that's going to make a whole lot of sense. So here, we want to analyze each of these solutions and do some recommendation. Now, potential values are analyzed many times over the course of a change because what might seem to be value for us today might not be value for us tomorrow, maybe based on the politics of our country, of our region, based on inflation, based on changing demands and needs of customer base, based on what our new strategic goal is going to be. So these things can change. Now, if I need to analyze potential value, so what are some of the inputs? So potential value is one, the value that we're going to get from a particular change. And value is not only monetary. You should understand that the value is not going to only be monetary. So you don't analyze value just by looking at only monies that is going to accrue to you. You also look at brand awareness. You look at branding. You look at goodwill. You look at how well you have done with respect to your social responsibility as a company. So there are several ways you can look at potential value. Then, of course, the different design options. So the elements are expected benefits, expected costs, determined value, assess design options, and recommend solution. So let's look at them. Some of the guidelines are going to be business objectives, current state description, future state description, risk analysis results, and solution scope. How are we going to do all of this analysis? So some of them keep reoccurring. We're going to look at our acceptance criteria, look at backlog management, look at all of the requirements that we have and we have in our backlog, we have in our archive. We're going to do some brainstorming, look at our business case, look at our business model canvas. We analyze different decisions we've made. We'll do some estimation and others. Regular stakeholders are going to be involved in trying to help us analyze our potential value and recommend solutions for us. And at the end of the day, we're going to get our solution recommendation. So the recommended solution should maximize the value provided to the enterprise. So if you have any questions, we have some questions for some of us that are taking the trainings physically or in our remote classes. And most of these questions, we can review them in class. And if you have questions, don't forget to ask in the comment section. And in the next series, we're going to be looking at solution evaluation. Because whatever solution that we propose, we need to look at it. We need to evaluate it. We need to see if it's going to make a lot of sense, if it's going to work at the end of the day, if it is the best solution for us.